It's 9 p.m. The house is quiet. Maybe the kids are finally in bed. Maybe your partner is watching TV in the other room. Maybe you're completely alone and you find yourself standing in the kitchen. You're not hungry, and you know in your heart that you're not hungry. You ate dinner in an hour, but your hand is already on the fridge door reaching for something, and your brain has already started its script. Just a little. You deserve it. It doesn't even count. Tomorrow, you'll be better. Monday, that's when things change. You'll start fresh. So you take a bite of whatever it is, and for just a second, honestly, maybe 2 seconds, the noise gets quiet. Then the shame hits like a wave, a tidal wave, and you're standing there in your kitchen in the dark thinking, what is wrong with me? I had bariatric surgery. I amputated my stomach. I literally went under general anesthesia and let someone remove part of my body just so that I could get healthy again. Yet here I am. I changed my body forever. I'm still doing this. I'm still fighting this battle with food after everything I've been through. If that moment is familiar to you, if you have stood in your kitchen, if you've had that exact thought, I need you to hear what I'm about to say. You're not broken. You're not weak. You did not run out of willpower. This is not your fault, because nobody, not your surgeon, not your doctor, not your nutritionist, not your therapist, nobody has ever told you the real reason this keeps happening. That's what this video is about. And if you want to go deeper on everything I'm going to talk about right now, I'm hosting a free live workshop called How to Eliminate Food Noise After Bariatric Surgery Without Shots or Extreme Dieting. The link to register is in the description or the caption below. Now let me show you what's actually going on. I have a feeling I might know your reality because I've talked to thousands of women just like you. You're probably checking the scale every single morning before you do anything else. It's the first thing you do in the morning. Your stomach is in knots before you step on it, and you're just praying to God that your weight is the same number it was yesterday, but it didn't increase. But you know it probably isn't. You're wearing the same 3 outfits on rotation because you don't want to buy a bigger size. Because if you do that, that means that you're admitting something you're not ready to admit yet. You haven't even told your doctor the weight's coming back. You don't think they're gonna help, because they've just been telling you to eat less, move more. But what you're struggling with is so much more complicated than that. You haven't told your husband, you haven't told your best friend, because the second that you say it out loud, it makes everything real. You're not ready for it to be real yet. You're still making the same promise to yourself every single weekend, every single Sunday night. Tomorrow will be different. This week will be different. I mean it this time. By Wednesday, you already know how the week went. You did the most extreme thing that a person can do to fix their relationship with food. You underwent surgery. You let someone amputate your stomach. You changed your life forever, and food is still winning. But the fear underneath it all, the fear that whispers, this is how it starts. This is the beginning of the end. What if I end up right back where I started? That's the fear that's actually keeping you up at night, not the 10 pounds, what 10 pounds becomes. And I know that fear, not because I read about it, but because I lived it myself. If you're new here, I'm Jessica Lawson. I had gastric sleeve surgery. I lost 140 pounds, and I followed every single instruction that my surgeon gave me. And for a while, it worked. Food was quieter. Life felt easier. I generally thought that surgery was going to solve all of my problems, both with food and honestly, just everything. I really thought that the hard part of life was over, but I was so wrong. A year after my surgery, my father died. He died from obesity, exactly what I was trying to escape. He had diabetes. He had multiple heart attacks, sleep apnea. I watched him use food his entire life that I knew him to cope with stress, with pain, with hard days, loneliness, boredom. So when he died, what I felt wasn't just grief, it was fear. I wasn't just mourning my father. I was staring into a future that I did not want for myself and that I amputated my body to not have. But grief does not care that you had bariatric surgery. Stress does not care. Your nervous system does not care. And in 30 days, I regained 15 pounds. Not because I was hungry, not because I forgot what to do. You know it's eat less, move more, right? Not because my surgery failed. It was emotions. It was stress. It was old habits. My brain was doing exactly what it had always done, reaching for the fastest way to get relief. And it happened so quickly. I still honestly cannot believe that it happened to me, but it did. And it wasn't the 15 pounds that broke me. It was the fear. What if I'm one of the ones that regains everything? What if I wasted my surgery? What if this is the beginning of the end? And that's when something really shifted for me. I stopped asking what is wrong with me, because that's not productive. That doesn't solve the problem. I started asking what is missing. That question changed everything, because what I realized in that moment was that the problem was never my stomach. Honestly, sometimes I wonder if bariatric surgery should exist, but that's a topic for an entirely different video, which maybe we'll do one day. What I really realized was that I was trying to solve a brain problem with food rules, with diet rules, with exercise rules, everything that my surgeon taught me and my doctor taught me that did nothing to change any of the reasons why I gained the weight in the first place and became overweight and obese. Nobody had ever given me the tools for the brain part. So I did what I do best. I became obsessed with figuring this out. I studied the neuroscience, the behavioral psychology, the biochemistry of why bariatric patients struggle long term. I became my own guinea pig, pretty much. I became obsessed with figuring out what was actually missing, but not just for me, but because I had heard from hundreds, thousands of people that they lived the same story. Bariatric patients, bariatric women who did everything right. Everything their doctor told them to do. They followed every rule. They had the surgery. They lost the weight and they felt free. But then they watched it start to come back and they had no idea why. And what I found is the reason nobody in the bariatric system talks about this. And it changes everything. So let me break down what's actually happening. Now pay close attention here, because this is the part that nobody, and I mean nobody, explains. Not your surgeon, not your dietitian, not any doctor you've ever seen, okay? And once you understand it, you will stop blaming yourself and you'll never blame yourself again. Because here's the truth about bariatric surgery that the medical system does not tell you. The surgery was just on your stomach. It was not on your brain. It was not on any of the patterns, the emotional patterns, the stress patterns, your habit patterns, the behavioral patterns, anything that led you to need surgery in the first place. Let me show you what I mean. Your eating behavior, your relationship with food, is really controlled by 3 separate systems in your body. System 1 is your hunger and fullness system. This is controlled really mainly by 2 hormones in your system, ghrelin and leptin. And ghrelin is your hunger hormone. It tells your brain it's time to eat. Right after surgery, ghrelin drops significantly. That's why food feels quiet after surgery. You have less of that hormone. That's why you felt free. That's the honeymoon phase. But here's what no one tells you except me. Ghrelin levels begin to normalize around 12 to 24 months post-surgery. 24 months is really pushing it, but it's around 12 to 16 months. Your body starts producing it a lot more again. And for many bariatric patients, that is scary. But also a lot of bariatric patients actually have leptin resistance. And leptin is the hormone that signals satisfaction and fullness. That's already present before surgery, and it remains completely untouched after it. So your brain never quite gets the I'm satisfied signal that it might need. You feel the physical pressure, but maybe not necessarily in your brain. So you keep searching. Your brain keeps looking for something to fill that gap. That searching, that constant mental noise about food. That is food noise at a biochemical level. It is not a weakness. It is your hormones doing exactly what they're designed to do. Out of 3 systems, surgery helped for a little bit. System 1, temporarily, and very temporarily. Here's the problem though. Systems 2 and 3 were never touched. System 2 is your stress response system. Really, we're talking about cortisol here. Now, when cortisol, your primary stress hormone, when that spikes, something very specific happens in your brain. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational, decision-making part of your brain, that goes partially offline. What happens is that your survival brain takes over. And your survival brain has exactly one job: find relief fast. Yeah. It does not care about your goal weight. It does not care about your health. It does not care about your surgery. It does not care about the promise you made yourself on Sunday night or on the operating table. It only cares about one thing: making the discomfort stop as quickly as possible, getting you relief. That is the goal. Your brain has decades of evidence. If you had surgery, this is probably true, but your brain has decades of evidence that food does this faster than anything else. So when stress hits, when you've had back-to-back meetings, when the kids won't stop talking or complaining, when you've given everything you've got to the world and you're exhausted and depleted, your survival brain fires and it sends you straight to the kitchen before your conscious brain even knows what's even happening. That is neuroscience. There's nothing wrong with you. This is literally what your body's programmed to do. Surgery did not touch your stress response system, not even a little bit. And this third system that I'm talking about next is the one that explains everything, because this is the one that really truly drives the pattern that I see with my clients, driving the pattern over and over. System 3 is your habit and conditioning system. This is probably the most important one to understand. Your brain has probably spent decades, like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, building neural pathways that connect food to comfort, to relief, to reward, to escape. And every single time that you ate something and then you felt better, you trained your brain. Your brain logged it as, oh goodness, that worked. It filed it. It built a stronger highway between stress and food. These neural pathways do not get changed in surgery. They sit completely untouched, intact, waiting. Silently waiting. The restriction after surgery masked them temporarily. The quiet phase made you think they were gone, but they weren't gone. They were just waiting for the next hard season. And the moment life got heavy again, which is what happened to me, literally exactly when my father died, those pathways lit right back up like they never left. Because they never did. Now, your brain is constantly building evidence. It's constantly building a case file about who you are. Every action you take gets filed as evidence of your identity. So if you spent decades, 30, 40, 50, 60 years acting like someone who struggles with food, your brain has 30, 40, 50 years of evidence that this is who you are. And identity drives behavior more powerfully than any restriction, any rule that you impose. More powerfully than any surgery. This is why you can use willpower, biochemical the whole day, but be completely in control from the morning until 3 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m., and you fall apart at night. Because by 8 p.m., your willpower is gone, your cortisol's high, your survival brain, it's running the show. Your identity says to you, this is what I do. So when you ask yourself, why is this still happening after everything I've done? This is why. Surgery impacted only one of the 3 systems, and that was temporary. The other 2 were never touched, and that's not your fault. That's an incomplete solution. This is the foundation of everything I work with my clients on in my coaching program. And once you understand these 3 systems, everything changes. Now, before I tell you what actually works, I have to tell you what doesn't, because I know what you've already tried. And I know what you're considering right now too. More willpower. Willpower's a finite resource. It depletes throughout the day like a phone battery. By 9 p.m., you're running on empty. Building your entire food strategy around willpower is like trying to drive across the country on a quarter tank of gas every single day. It's never going to work. Not because of you, but because of biology and how your body's wired. Maybe you're thinking about going back to the basics. Oh, yeah. If the basics worked, you wouldn't be here. Basics address what you eat, but they don't address why you eat. And the why is the entire problem. Maybe you're thinking about a pouch reset. Oh, yeah. Pouch reset is a stomach solution. But it's not even really a solution, though. It's something you do for your stomach in theory, but doesn't do anything. The stomach solution, hard quotation marks on solution for a brain problem. It creates temporary restriction. It does not touch your stress response. It does not rewire neural pathways. It does not change your identity. The patterns come back every single time. Let's talk about Ozempic or another GLP-1. I'm not here to shame anyone for doing this. I understand why you are. I really do. But here's what you need to know is that the medication quiets the food noise chemically, temporarily. And the moment you stop, and most people eventually do, right? You're not on it to be on it for forever, but the same neural pathways are still there. The same stress response is still there. The same patterns are still there. They're untouched. They're waiting because the medication never addressed the root cause either. So your doctor telling you to eat less and move more, your surgeon being one of the most skilled people in the world at what they do, which is stomachs, surgical procedure, that is their expertise. But the 40 years of emotional and behavioral patterns sitting in your brain, that's a completely different problem. And it requires a different solution. And no doctor or surgeon is trained on that. None of these things are the answer because none of them address all 3 systems. And until you address all 3 systems, the pattern will keep coming back and you'll continue to be dealing with this for the rest of your life. Do you want that? If you made it this far in the video, I don't think you do. What actually works is addressing all 3 systems together. The hunger, fullness system, the stress response system, the habit and conditioning system. And that is the entire foundation of what I do. And I'm going to show you exactly how we do that in the workshop. If you want to join, sign up at the link below. Now, let me show you what happens when people solve the right problem, not just in theory, but like real people with real results and real clients. So one of my clients was 67 years old. She described her experience before working with me in 3 words. She felt bullied by food noise. Decades of it. Every diet, every reset, every program, nothing ever touched it. After we worked together inside the program, she lost 66 pounds, but that's not the part that matters most. She traveled to Southeast Asia for 5 weeks, came back 2 pounds up, lost it in 10 days. No panic, no spiral, no white knuckling. And she told me afterwards, I don't feel like I need that motivation or self-talk anymore. This is just who I am now. That is what calm and control feels like. You're not forcing it every day. It's just who you are. There's a client that came to me who was only 8 pounds up. She had only regained 8 pounds. Most people would say that's nothing, but she knew better. She recognized the food noise getting louder and the evening eating creeping back in. The Sunday night promises were starting again, and she knew exactly where 8 pounds goes if you don't stop it. But because she'd been there before it became 30 pounds, before it became 80 pounds, before it became a thing that she was most terrified of. That is what catching it early looks like. If you recognized yourself in this video, if you've stood in the kitchen, if you felt that fear, I want you to come to my free live workshop, How to Eliminate Food Noise After Bariatric Surgery Without Shots or Extreme Dieting. And here's what the workshop's about. It's about what it actually feels like to walk past your kitchen at 9 p.m. and not even notice, or to go through a stressful week, the kind that used to completely break you, and realize on Friday that food never even crossed your mind. To stand in front of a buffet at a wedding or a social event or a holiday and feel nothing. No pull, no noise, no negotiation. Take a 5-week trip and come home the same size that you left. To stop checking the scale with your stomach in knots every single morning. To finally become the woman that you thought surgery was going to make you. Not because you're using self-control, but because for the first time, you've actually solved the real problem. That's what this workshop is for. I'm going to walk you through why the food noise keeps coming back and show you what's actually driving it. I'm going to give you the first piece of a brain-based approach that your surgeon was never trained and never knew to give you. Because surgeons are trained to change your stomach, change your anatomy. They are not trained to give you back the version of yourself you've been waiting your whole life to feel like. And that is the gap. That is what this workshop fills. The link to register in the description below. If you're done fighting food, if you're done making the same promise to yourself every week, every Sunday night, if you're ready to become the woman who doesn't think about food anymore, I'll see you there. And before you go, I want you to hear this. You've been fighting this battle for a long time, maybe your entire life, maybe since you were 5 years old. You haven't given up yet. You had surgery. It's like one of the most extreme things you can do. You're still looking for answers. You're still watching videos because you're watching this one and reading and trying to figure this out on your own. That's not someone who failed. That's someone who was never set up for success. So you're not broken. You never were. You just never had all 3 pieces. And that's what we fix in the workshop. I'll see you there.